Revolutionary ideas started to spread in Russia in the 1860s. It was at that time that the Narodnik movement emerged. Narodnik movement is derived from narod, people, ordinary folk. The Narodniks were usually representatives of the intelligentsia. They believed that Russia could only be transformed from below by a peasant uprising. They saw the peasants as special people. The peasant society for them was the epitome of morality, the people's wisdom, communal spirit, something like nascent socialism, innate spirituality, and they thought that peasants have an insatiable quest for freedom. The Narodniks believed that by getting close to the peasant and waking him up to the revolutionary idea, they would achieve free and just society in Russia. Many did indeed go to live in the villages in order to enlighten the peasants. They were to be entirely disappointed. They found crude mores, drunkenness, squalor, and an oppressive communal system. Peasants were not interested in the revolutionary teaching, and they often handed the Narodniks over to the police. In the picture you see the arrest of a propagandist. This is one of the Narodniks who was obviously betrayed to the police by the very peasants whom he wanted to enlighten. He must have been deadly disappointed. Look how he looks at these peasants. But the goal of the revolution did not go away. On the contrary, it turned into something like a cult. Several organizations emerged from the Narodnik movement. Some were terrorist. The terrorists' idea was that assassinations of Tsarist officials and of the Tsar himself would spark a peasant uprising. Vera Figner was a terrorist herself. She said the bomb and the gun had a magnetic charm. Several top officials were assassinated by her and people like her. There were several attempts on the life of Alexander II, the Tsar liberator who introduced the 1860s reforms. In 1881 he was finally killed by a terrorist bomb. Here is the picture of how it happened. It must be said that he didn't take around many guards with him, but even the guards could not save him in this case. Right at the place where he was killed, a cathedral was erected, Savior on the Blood Cathedral. The assassination of the Tsar resulted in an upsurge of patriotism and repression, not in a revolution. This trend developed into the chauvinist and anti-Semitic Black Hundred movement. It was aggressively pro-autocratic, anti-democratic, and anti-Semitic. In the late 19th, early 20th century, a wave of mass anti-Semitic killings, the pogroms, wrecked Russian Jewish communities. This is only one of many pictures, an anti-Semitic pogrom in Odessa in 1905. Various socialist ideas gained popularity among the Russian intelligentsia in the last decade of the 19th century. Socialism was often understood as a redistribution or communalization of property, first of all land, and of course a full equality of citizens' rights and property. But few connected the notion of socialism with institutional democracy. Marxism made it to Russia in the 1880s. Some Marxist circles embraced the class theory, but not the idea of a socialist revolution. Their members thought that Russia needed more capitalism and a constitution, not a revolution. Later, they were called legal Marxists, and they became the core of Russian liberalism. Here are the two leaders of legal Marxists, Pavel Annenkov and Peter Struve. But the majority of Marxists, social democrats, preached a proletarian revolution. They rejected individual terror, but not revolutionary terror against opponents of the revolution or against exploiter classes. In the mid-1890s, there were several social democratic circles in Russia. One of these was the St. Petersburg Union for the Liberation of the Working Class. This circle was founded in 1895 by Vladimir Ulyanov. Later, Ulyanov took the alias Lenin. Here you can see Lenin sitting right in the middle, and this is one of the first pictures of the future leader of the Russian Revolution. Here is a police photograph of Lenin from the very same time, a young man with a great future. In 1898, several social democratic organizations met in Minsk to form the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. This was the forerunner of the Soviet Communist Party. Despite repression, this organization distributed propaganda materials among workers and soldiers. It published leaflets and distributed them too. In 1900, it started its newspaper, the Iskra. The Iskra was edited by Lenin, and here you see Iskra, Lenin's Iskra, the Spark, 1902. In the early 20th century, the party used every opportunity to instigate the coming revolution. When it came, the Social Democrats called for an armed uprising, smuggled arms into the country, and committed daring acts of sabotage. This was the party which Stalin was to join and lead.